Hi, this is Betty. I'm back outside in my garden today, and I wanted to show you the benefits of mulching and also watering needs of individual plants. Now, as I mentioned in my other videos, we have a real problem with uh, weeds, a lot of weeds. And so what I've done in this garden bed with my tomatoes is we have some alfalfa growing in parts of our yard. So I cut it down, and you can see right here, this was alfalfa. I just spread it here on the dirt. It's high in nitrogen, so it can be tilled into the soil, worked into soil, but I chose to put it on top to use as a mulch to help prevent weeds. And you can see that it has done a very good job. Where I don't have it, there are weeds. You can use grass clippings. Some people use straw. And the benefits of mulching also helps prevent drying out of the soil. And obviously, it's really working well for preventing weeds in my garden wherever I put it. Right here, I had a potted plant there for a little while, and weeds grew up around where I didn't have the mulch, the alfalfa mulch. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about is watering needs. Different plants need different amounts of water, and if you overwater them, they do not do well, and if you underwater them, they don't do well. Tomatoes can go without water quite a bit longer than, say, cabbages. Tomatoes can be watered 7 to 10 days, and they like deep watering when you water them. A lot of people use a drip water system. That's what we've been using in the past with the PVC pipes, but this year we're thinking of changing how we do it, and I'm going to go up to my aunt's house. She came by and looked at what we had here, and she said, "I've got something I think you'll like better." And so we're going to go up to her house and see what she has done with watering in her yard and in her garden. She really enjoys it. She can do it by herself. She doesn't need more than one person to set it up. For us, my husband's engineered it, and my dad used this watering system with the PVC pipes. And so we used that, and we really liked it. But it takes quite a bit of time to set up, and sometimes my husband needs a helper to help him put it together. Now, the watering needs for this is a crookneck squash, and I've got DE around that. I have found squash bugs every other day, probably 2 to 3, at least 2 to 3 on my plants. We've had an infestation of squash bugs last year, and it looks like definitely this year, because I've probably found at least 20 squash bugs on my plants. So the DE will help prevent squash bugs if you put them on the backs of the leaves and around the roots and stems. Be careful not to get them on your blossoms or the tops of leaves. Sometimes they'll get on the tops of leaves, and it doesn't come off very well, but that will kill beneficial bacteria on the soil, organisms, and that's a drawback to using diatomaceous earth, DE. You have to be careful not to get them on the blossoms because it will kill bees. And so you've got to be really careful when you use it. And anyway, crookneck squashes, zucchini squashes, they only need to be watered about once a week, depending on your soil and the area you live in. And I've got some basil here that is flowered out and attracting bees. And I really like the purple basil. I really like the taste of that. We've got our cucumber growing up the trellis here, and I've tied it up with the strips of black nylon. And this one is a butternut squash. It should be watered 7 to 10 days, and I've put it in with the weekly watering plants because I simply ran out of room in my tomato garden over here that don't need as much water. This is a spaghetti squash. It gets the same amount of water as tomatoes do. And so that's why it's in this garden. And next year I will probably cut back on how many tomatoes I have and just put the other squashes that don't need as much water, that get about the same as the tomatoes do. The butternut squash, the banana squashes, acorn squashes, those types of squashes. Now, this over here in this garden plot is the zucchini. I've got zucchini growing here, and they also require only watering once a week. You can see the weeds growing in this garden. It's kind of interesting. We got dirt from one part of our yard to put in this one, and the weeds are minimal in this garden bed. But in this garden bed, we got it from a different place in our yard, and they just sprung up like crazy. And so I'll have to do quite a bit of weeding in this bed. Now, I wanted to put my cabbages with my Swiss chard and my beets, because cabbages require watering about 2 times a week, and they like deep water wells. They like to be higher up than the water, so I've got them on a hill here, and I will be joining these right here and here to make one big watering well once I have my system all the way up, because these cabbages will get quite big, and they will probably end up almost touching each other by the time they're ready to harvest. Anyway, so I'll make great big watering wells for them. I'm bigger than what I have here. And anyway, the ideal thing would have been to put them in with my Swiss chard and my beets, but the bed wasn't ready for them yet, and they needed to get planted. They weren't doing well. I had put them in some boxes with dirt, and that helped them because they were in those little tiny nursery pots, and they just weren't going to make it until we got these beds done. So anyway, that's what I did with those. In this garden bed, I have beans that I have planted, and I can just see some starting to come up now. Pretty excited. I mentioned in a previous video that I soaked my beans overnight. My friend Nancy, who is an avid gardener, gave me that hint that they will sprout faster if you soak them overnight. And so I did that, and so I'm pretty excited to see what happens. Beans only need watering once a week. So that will, this whole garden bed is filled with beans. And the same with this next one that we have almost finished. I will be putting beans in this bed too. And they only require watering once a week. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about the watering needs today. And then when I go up to visit my aunt, I'm going to take a video of what system she has. And we'll be showing that to you so you can see different watering systems people have. Got some parsley growing there. Eventually I'm going to have one bed just for herbs, and they require different needs. Some of them need a little bit of shade, cooler temperatures, and others you have to take care of quite a bit. But I like my herbs, and they're a fantastic thing to have in the garden. Anyway, that's all that I have for today. If my video's ever cut off without me saying bye, that's because my phone gets too hot and it just quits. Looks like I got some blossoms on my cucumbers. Yay! Anyway, you can subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for some more videos. Bye!